Welcome to the Gifts for Glory podcast, where we celebrate and promote men and women using their gifts for God's glory. Know someone who is making an impact for God's kingdom using their gifts, talents, and passions? We'd love to meet them. Send us an email at podcast@giftsforglory.com. That's podcast@gifts4glory.com. And now here is our host, Dave Ebert.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gifts for Glory podcast. Thank you for joining us, whether you're live here on the Gifts for Glory Facebook page or on our YouTube page, or if you're joining us from the Vindie Nation group. You might be watching also on the Creative Motion Network or listening on the Taken TV Podcast Network or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. We cast a wide net. We want to make sure that we get these stories out to as many people as possible. So we're so thankful that you're with us and that you're joining us now for the Gifts for Glory podcast. Please be a part of the show if you're watching live. Leave a comment in the chat box, and we'd love to connect with you and just have a great time this evening. Now, one of the tenets of the Gifts for Glory ministries is our improv comedy troupe based in the Chicagoland suburbs. We're called Well-Versed Comedy. We're getting ready for our next show at Lombard Assembly Church in Lombard, Illinois on Saturday, January 22nd. So if you're in the Midwest and you'd like to make a drive for a free show, we'd love to see you there. And if you're also in the Midwest and you'd like to bring comedy to your church, we'd love to serve you with a gift of laughter. Just follow us at Well-Versed CMDY. That's at Well-Versed CMDY or at wellversedcomedy.com. And we'd love to connect with you there. So let's transition now over to our Devotions with Dave segment. Our Devotions with Dave segment is coming from the book of Esther. Esther chapter 4:14 is the verse. Here, of course, Esther's being encouraged to use her position. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? So often we might hear that part of the phrasing of such a time as this uttered, but we don't always relate it to life and death situations. Here, Esther has the power to potentially influence the way that the king is running things. And here she's being admonished, saying, hey, you were probably put here for this moment. If you don't act, God has a backup plan, but why not serve God? Why not honor God and use your position, use what God's given you, use, dare I say, your gifts for God's glory. And that's an encouragement that rings true today. We're all given gifts. We're all given talents. We're given passions and desires. We're even given experiences that can be used and redeemed by God for such a time as this. And as we go on further, as things get more and more crazy, the body of Christ needs to rise up for just such a time as this. So I hope that you'll be encouraged by the lesson that Esther left us with this moment by saying, let's use our gifts, our talents, our passions, the positions that God is putting us in a way to serve his kingdom, to grow his kingdom, to serve others, and potentially save a life and more likely save an eternity by acting and by being used by God. So I encourage you, use your gifts, your talents, your passions, everything that God has given you as a way to serve and honor him. So that was our Devotion with Dave segment coming from the book of Esther, Esther 4:14, reading from the New Living Translation. Now, as we move forward, we're going to get to our guest, a phenomenal guest. It's going to be a lot of fun having this conversation. If you're not aware of Vindication, if you haven't watched the trailer or watched the show, I got to ask, where have you been? But for those of you that might be new to the game, here is the season 2 trailer from Vindication.
All right, guys, get out there, be safe, watch each other's backs.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a guy in the garage with my dad, and they're yelling, and I don't know what to do.
I'm Sargent Travis with East Bank Police Department. Just here to follow up.
Be careful. Be safe. I love you.
There is no shortage of issues in this world today. From injustice, inequality, prejudice. Where I grew up, there wasn't no hate about it.
Just come on here. They're all covering for him.
Sad. It's like they're addicts. No limits.
I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it was one bad choice.
One bad choice or one down clock.
You know what I do know? Is that God doesn't abandon us just because we mess up. With all this shuffling going on, it's going to create opportunities for those who are willing to show how much they want to move up.
What do they expect to find in a review?
Between you and me, I have a lot of fans on that panel.
Never contact him again, or I will come after you.
I am so proud of you, but maybe just leave us out of it, okay?
We love you, Father. Continue to lead us, guide us, and direct us. Amen.
And the trailer is just an excellent teaser. The show, the season 2 was phenomenal. So let's bring in our guest at this time, actor and real estate agent Todd Terry. He's the lead actor who plays Sargent Gary Travis in the hit crime drama Vindication. It's going to be a great conversation. So without further ado, let me welcome Mr. Todd Terry. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Gifts of Glory podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I don't think I've seen that cut of the trailer before, and I was like, I want to see that.
And the way they put it together, it gets you enticed. You want to see the season, and you think that, okay, it's going to be predictable. You're like, okay, I saw this in the trailer, so I know what it's building up to. But just like in season 1, Jared in the writing staff did a phenomenal job of leading you in a direction, but then giving you a different swerve at many aspects. Yep. Not as many swerves this year, except for the story arc of perhaps Joe Anderson, the biggest swerve of all. But this year it was, the trailer definitely lives up to the hype.
Yeah, it was funny what you said. Like last year or the first season, I think some of the flashbacks kind of threw you off or gave you a perspective of something that may or may not be true. Whereas, I don't know, the storyline, it's not that the storylines are stronger this time around, but there's less of that. And it's just, I think you're just more engaged because you've gotten to know the family, you've gotten to know some elements that you don't necessarily have to go to, say, flashbacks for it. You're just kind of pulled into the story. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah. And the biggest flashback of season 2 was something that you kind of guessed at as you're watching that episode, but and the season's been out long enough. I don't think that we can worry about spoilers, but the flashback of you as the kid realizing that your mom kind of was an absent mom and didn't give young Travis, Gary Travis, what he needed. That flashback was excellently done because it was kind of new, but at the same time, it created a much needed backstory.
Yeah, and I think that's important for any drama. Of course, I didn't see that at all, any of that being filmed, but it was powerful for me just to watch that, just to see, oh, this is my character's backstory. And sorry, my dogs just started barking. Knew it would happen. But, I think that's important because it builds more of an emotional life with that character when you get to go see where they came from and maybe some of, for lack of a better word, strongholds in Gary's life, Travis's life, and, how sometimes maybe he chooses anger and shutting people off, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The story arc of the first season, as we watch, Gary Travis grow I always say that, or the way I diagnose it or analyze it was Todd, that Gary Travis had three women in his life that he was growing in each relationship, and as he grew in one relationship, it fed into the others because you had your wife, you had your daughter, and then you had Chris Tanner coming in, and I think all three of those storylines really shaped who Gary Travis was when he's driving to church that final episode.
Interesting. And I never thought about it that way, but no, that's a great perspective. Yeah, I mean, season one, for me is coming to know Jesus, just the grace of God. Whereas season two is more about, I would say, sanctification, or kind of going through that motion. But no, I love that perspective of the woman in his life.
And then we go to season two, and Becky and Gary have moved into a smaller house and are using some savings to help and bless other people. And it's really cool because it's only done in one episode, because it's not necessarily, it's kind of going that biblical principle of don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. But you'd use it in one episode with the single mom, and it was just a really cool moment to see that exchange there in the first episode.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that first episode, just of what they're going through. And as an actor, I had no idea, and none of us really know what's coming next, which is great. So we're kind of discovering it as the show goes along. But I thought that was a great take. I actually, I remember back early in my coming to the Lord, and just some decisions I made back then that I can relate to in some of these aspects of what the Travis family decided to do.
Yeah. So I know that in many ways it's kind of like trying to pick your favorite child. But is there an episode in the first two seasons that you look back and you're like, that was my favorite episode to shoot, or my favorite episode or story to tell?
God, that's hard. That's like saying, who's your favorite child?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I can say. There's several that had an impact. One was with, and I apologize, names are escaping me, but the one about the photographer in season two, the moment with the girl, that was, I remember that being an impactful episode for me. The final episode with Doris in the prison, that was impactful.
Yeah.
With Cameron Arnett, the discovery of that and that scene, those are just moments that are popping, in my mind. I also like the humor of it. I love everybody in the show, but Candace Kirkpatrick has a special place in my heart. She's just such an encourager and such a funny lady. She doesn't even know how funny she is. She's just really funny, and she just makes some really fun choices with that character. So anyway, but yeah, I've loved working with everybody. Everybody brings their own thing to the show, and that's what's great about it. It's not about one person. It's about a team of people working together that's made the show really great. Jared at the helm.
Yeah, and Candace's character is. It seems like it's so unlike her, because when you talk to her, like I've interviewed her, and you just see her interactions. She's on the Christian View now. It seems like she's not quite as quirky in real life as maybe Janet is. Or being around her in person, do you realize, no, that's actually Candace?
No, she's a good actress, because that's not. I mean, it's not that she can't, be funny and quirky, but she's. She just brings that character to life in a way, but I wouldn't say that's who Candace is. She's just, she's a good actress. So,
yeah. And Jared's popping in. He said Todd was throwing some beautiful spirals to TC during the football practice montage.
Jared was so nervous. I think he asked me to send him a video of me throwing the football, and I don't think I ever sent him one. So I'm sure he was nervous about me throwing it. But Jared can throw the football. So, on all the shots where you don't see me, he's throwing the ball. But yeah, I actually held my own throwing it to TC, which is great. He's an all-star, man.
Now he's a legit athlete. He's gonna play football. Did he ever? Was there a moment where he's like, "TC, slow down! I can't throw that far," or were you able to hit him pretty easily?
Honestly, it was for me. It was a hail mary every time. I just literally just chunked it, and just by the grace of God, it got there most every time. But he's so fast that you just have to act quickly.
So how did you get tied to Jared and to Vindication? Because it started off as basically a short film with Ben Davies and what became the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Which, if you watch it, you're like, wow, that could be a short film by itself. And then you get blessed. You're like, oh wow, there's a whole series now, which is kind of like was my journey. But how did you first get involved?
Yeah. So initially, it was just a short film. I had met Jared at I think it's CMA, Christian Media Artist. I think that's the name of it. And I was there, I think at the time, speaking about a film that I had done. And afterwards, he came up and just started chatting and said, "Hey, would you be interested in being in this short film?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was it. And so shot it with Ben Davies. Ben's great. Ben needs to come back into the show somehow. That would be awesome. But shot it, and then that was it. I was like, okay, cool. It won some awards. We went to Austin to a exhibition. What do you call it? A festival. And Venus was there, and she was hosting this particular festival. I think it's the Attic Film Festival. And I guess Jared may have had conversations with her before about potentially the show, becoming a series. And that's when, at least for me, the birth of the series began, because Jared said, "Hey, I'm thinking about turning it into a series." And here we are, like 3 years later, and we're going into season 3. So it's a huge blessing for me, or for any actor, just to be able to get, not know it's coming, and then it comes, and just like steady work. And, it's nice to build a character.
Obviously, if anybody looks at your IMDb page, you've been in acting for quite a bit. What was the kind of the genesis of your acting career?
In high school, I did. I joined a drama class, or joined high school drama class, and for me, it was therapy. I was relatively a shy kid. I could perform, but I mean, I was very introverted, and for me, it was like emotional therapy to do a monologue and to be able to, exercise my emotions, so to speak. And then from there, I loved it. And then I went and studied. I studied over in Europe for a short time. I went to a professional actors conservatory for, just like a 2-year training program, and then did summer stock and moved to Amsterdam with a theater company, an American theater company, ran out of money, came back. So it's always been in my blood to do it, because I've loved it. And I love stories, and I love telling stories, basically. But I think what really struck me when I was about 17 or 18, I was part of something called Teenage Communication Theater. It was a theater troupe. We did improv on subjects like drug abuse, teen pregnancy, you go on, and we'd improvise these scenes, hone them, and then go present them to bunch of different community centers, things like that. And for me, that gave a purpose to acting for me. So I'd always kind of wanted that. So when Vindication came along, for me, it was like a heart thing to be able to, do what I love, and also feel like I'm giving something to people versus just another story.
Mm-hmm. The resume is amazing, because you've done some pretty big things. You're in Arlington Road way back in 1999, which is a favorite of mine. I thought it was a really exciting film. You've been in Fear of the Walking Dead. Is there a moment that you look and you felt like, I can't believe I'm doing this? Or has there been like a moment you've met somebody on set that you kind of feel like a fan when you go on set?
Yeah, it's pretty much every time. I've never really lost, I would say, my childlike enthusiasm for this. You go on any new project, even repeats of old ones, and of ones you've been on before, and it's still exciting all the time. I mean, I don't want to name drop, things that, oh, this was great, but I've had some really nice experiences, because I guess what for me is when you get on set with somebody that you see on the screen, they're just another person, and they're just like anybody, and so most of the time, I mean, every once in a while you run into somebody that, may have an attitude, but for me, it's been rare, and it's nice to know, hey, it's just another person. You've kind of seen them as something bigger than life, and, they're just another guy, another girl.
So just scrolling through that your IMDb page, was there ever a moment that you got a booking and you're like, wow, I'm really an actor now? I mean, and I don't mean that insulting, but it's like,
No.
it's like the coming of age moment where like, wow, this is really happening.
I can't think of, well, I can think of one, and it was a show I did, and then the following month it won an Emmy, and I felt so fortunate to be on the show, because I felt like had it won an Emmy before, I would have never been on the show. But and it turned into several episodes of work, and it was great, and so. But that I remember as being a really neat experience, meeting the lead actor in the trailer and all that. I'm not going to mention the name, but that was really kind of a highlight. But honestly, every job, I'm thinking early on when I was 18, 19 years old, I'd get an industrial or corporate video job for like, I can't believe it's yogurt or something like that. I'm like, yeah, because everything's new, and you're just trying to build your resume and get more work. So it's always exciting.
As somebody that's done some embarrassing short films myself, do you have anything that you're like, that will never be on my reel, and I better never see that project again?
Yes, I have one. It's not necessarily a short film, but I have one project, and I will not mention it, that I remember after shooting it, I went, oh my gosh, I hope this thing tanks, because I just did not, want to be a part of it. And then I also had one that I thought was going to be amazing, and I had all these friends over to watch it, and it was horrible. And it was just, me just going, thanks for coming. But it was so bad. But yeah, you just kind of, you develop a thick skin as an actor. You just got to learn to just go, okay, I feel horrible right now, I'm going to move on, go to the next one. So
Yeah, absolutely. The short films I was in, I'm like, the only time that they're going to see the light of day is if somebody wants to rib me at like a career, appreciation dinner. Like, this is where he started. So if they see the light of day, I think that might not be the worst thing in the world, because it's like,
oh God, you just brought to mind another one. I did, and I do remember a short film that I said I hope it never hits the light of day. But yeah, anyway.
So my favorite part of the show is always to hear people's journey, how they came to know Christ, and how big of an impact he's had. So Todd, tell us, how did you first find Jesus, and how did that happen? Was it did you grow up in a church-going family, or was this a journey you found on your own? Share with us your testimony.
Yeah, so I was brought up in the church. I was baptized as a kid, but as a kid, you don't really know much other than you're doing what your family expects you to do, what you see your friends do. And then I always had a consciousness of God, that, and I believed God was real, all this kind of stuff. And then I went to at a camp called Kanakuk, and I remember, giving my life to Christ. I remember giving my life to Christ many times as a kid. It was like this repeating, revolving door of, and this was just my mindset of, I gave my life to Christ, things changed, and I'd go right back into being an idiot and doing the things that, I did, any of us do when we're being idiots. And then it was not until, and then I kind of got out into the new age movement. I kind of everything. God was everything, and I was pulling from pieces of different religions and whatnot to try to, fill that hole, so to speak. And then when I was about 27, I met my wife, who was going to be my wife, who's an actress too, and she actually has been in Vindication. And, and things started to change at that time. I can't tell you exactly what it was, but I started going to a Bible study. I would argue with my wife about God, Jesus versus Buddha, all this kind of stuff. And eventually just something changed through this Bible study. And my pastor at the time, his name was James Borchert, and he just passed, which was really sad, but he was such an impact in my life because he was a kind of a strong father figure type, but I needed my butt kicked, so to speak. So for me, the message was, you're not good. Cause I always kind of went to the self-esteem movements and all that kind of stuff, trying to build myself back up. That's not what I needed. I needed, no, you're wicked. You're going down the wrong path, but God still loves you. And for me, that's what changed my heart, because I didn't really care. I didn't know how to clean up. I know how to fake it, but I didn't know. I needed an experience with God. And that's what happened with that, knowing that, hey, I'm wicked. God loves me, not to keep me in my sin, but to change me, change my heart, my mind, and all that. Like I'm looking in your background about your tabs open in your brain. Dude, that's me. That's me not all the time, but a lot of the time when I go back into that old man, it's just all in my head. And, for me, the biggest growing, and that's why I like Vindication. It's so much about relationship. For me, relationship is really, really what I need, because I want to go somewhere else and just kind of like be alone. And when I need relationship, that's my, that's my challenge for myself. Anyway, sorry, I just went off, but
no, that's beautiful. And everybody's story is beautiful because it all leads to the foot of the cross. And and your story is just another example of how God doesn't give up. He doesn't quit on us, like the moment you had with Joe Anderson's daughter. Just because we mess up doesn't mean God's gonna give up and walk away and wash his hands of us. He's gonna be there, and he's gonna let us mess up, be idiots, and face some of the consequences of that. And sometimes he'll save us from the consequences, but for the most part, he'll let us learn by falling down and then helping us pick ourselves back up.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for sharing your testimony and showing just again God's faithfulness. Somebody that we both know, Scott Galbraith, has chimed in and said, "Hey guys," and I said, "Todd Terry's a great guy to interview." And so are Dave. I should know because we were both on the round table about a month ago.
That's right. That was fun. That was a fun interview.
In that whole time that he's like, "Oh, there's a secret guest," I'm like, they're not gonna care.
No, I loved it. I thought it was great, man. Yeah, you are such a great supporter of the show, and so that's what made it so nice. Because you knew all the questions to ask.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I am trying to get Peggy on here. I'd love to hear her story as well, and hear the perspective of the on-set wife. As a married Christian, do you find it hard to be married on screen, or how do you navigate that with your wife? Because I know you said she's an actress as well.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, we've had discussions early on about kind of where we stand with certain things in regards to, on-screen romance, if you want to call it that kind of thing. And I would say early on, one of my one of my regrets was, doing a show where I felt like I compromised myself because I just wanted to work. And so I learned a lesson, I think somewhat of a lesson early on, And I won't go into specifics, but it just, it was a learning lesson for me. But no, it's not hard. We understand that, we're going to be in situations, that aren't compromised, but that we're obviously portraying somebody else's wife or husband. So yeah, she gets it.
From the husband's perspective, any jealousy of like, oh, she's in with that guy. I don't know. Or are you?
You
Are
mean
you?
watching? Like if I see her, like with
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of anything she's done. I mean, she's gonna get mad at me. No, no, I honestly can't think of anything off the top of my head that she's done that I went, oh, that's weird. So nothing comes to mind.
That's good. So we were talking before you started that there are several other projects that you have coming out. Pulled from Darkness from Homesick Media Entertainment with George talked about that. You also have Running the Bases movie and Unbreakable Boy. All those are in the show notes as well as up on the screen right now. And I know there's a lot to digest, but tell us a little bit about each one of these three projects and what they're about, what your role is going to be,
Sure.
so that people that while they're waiting for Vindication season 3, they can kind of get their fix between now and then.
And I don't know when they're coming out, actually, these three that are on the screen. But Pulled from Darkness, I play very against type. I play basically a Russian mobster. But it was a lot of fun. I got to learn, the dialect and a little bit of Russian, but the story's based on a true story that I believe happened in Armenia, if I'm correct. George can correct me, but and it's the story of a girl that basically gets sold in a card game, so to speak, and becomes trafficked and gets separated from her kids, and then what happens in the end. But it's a pretty gritty story. I've seen some of not the dailies, but just a little bit of footage, and it looks great. James Burgess was the DP on that, and he's done quite a few faith-based films. And then Running the Bases is a story that was shot in Arkansas, and it's the story of a family that gets promoted to a new school, brought to a new school to run their baseball program, which is a 5A program versus the 3A that he was at before. And it's your typical, not your typical story, but it's just I play the antagonist that comes against that particular person and makes his life hell, so to speak. And so that it's a faith-based film as well, and it was great to shoot. We shot it in Arkansas. And then Unbreakable Boy was produced by the Irwin brothers, and John Gunn was the director. I play the father of the lead in that. And it's based on a book. Great book. Really, really great script. So looking forward to, seeing that when it comes out.
Yeah. And those are just a few, because you've been pretty busy the last couple of years, even with the pandemic and everything. You also lent your voice to an animated series with Kevin and Kristen Collier for Benny the Barnacle. Was that your first voiceover work, or how? Or
no,
have you done much
for cartoon? No, I haven't done cartoon or like character type voices. Maybe a little. I've done a lot of voiceover work. I have a ongoing gig with a company called Tidal Lock that I do a lot of voice work for, and then just random commercials, things like that. So I've done it, but I've never done a character like that. So I'm anxious to see that. I'd love to do more of that kind of stuff. That's a lot of fun. Getting to play with your voice. I also got to work with Steve Mokate, who's in Vindication. We did a movie called The Senior that hopefully comes out next year. So that was fun to get to work with him, and a guy named Major Dodge, who was also in it's like episode 5 or 6 of season 1 in Vindication.
Okay. Now, you and Steve McKay, just looking at Facebook, you guys have a deep friendship. Was that started with Vindication, or did you guys know and work together before that?
No, we didn't. I mean, we just met on the set. We just love to harass each other. So that's we'll meet up, now and again. I love Steve. He's great, but we just literally, if you read our text threads, shake your head because it's like it's constant harassment about football or whatever. In fact, he's probably watching one of the I think it was a national championship. I don't know of whose national championship, but I think he said he was going to be watching that over us tonight. So,
well, maybe we just need to pray for him because I know he likes to wear that Sooner stuff all over.
Yeah, I know. It's embarrassing.
There were a few questions that we were asked by people in the Vindie Nation group. So if anybody is a fan of the show or is becoming a fan because you've seen our interview and you'd like to follow the conversations, feel free to join. It's the Vindie Nation group, VINDIE space Nation. And well, Alana May, she's from the UK. She started the change.org petition to kind of shake the rattle the cages at Pureflix. She wanted to ask a question. She asked, what is it like to work with such an amazing cast? Was her question.
Well, I will say everyone in that cast brings their own, because Jared's really great about not just casting locally. He looks all over the United States and allows people to submit. So we've got a lot of great actors on the show. And it's written so well that I just think that it's like, it's not that there's no acting involved. Of course, there's acting involved, but the characters are rich, and that always helps bring a story together. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's great. Everybody's been great to work with.
Awesome. And she also asked another question that I kind of touched on earlier about your favorite episode. But like we said, it's kind of like picking your favorite kids.
Yeah.
You're not really supposed to do that. But I think your favorite episode is going to be the next one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the next episode. That's right. That's good.
Awesome. So for those that are listening and not seeing the pop-ups on the screen, for those listening to the podcast, find the Vindication social media at Vindication Series. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. And for those that are listening, also the 3 projects that we were talking about a moment ago, Pulled from Darkness, you can find them at Homesick Media ENT on Facebook. Homesick Media ENT. Running the Bases is at Running the Bases Movie. And Unbreakable Boy is at Unbreakable B on Facebook. So check out those films that are coming out eventually. The release date has not been set on those. And then of course, VindicationSeries.com for updates on when season 3 is going to start filming, which should be in the next 6 weeks or so, it sounded like. And then really excited to see what happens. And of course, to see how long Jared is able to stretch out who is in the body bag, which obviously we can't answer. As I teased in the Vindie Nation group, that question can't be asked because, like, Jesus doesn't know the day or the hour. Todd Terry doesn't know who's in the body bag.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea. I have no idea. I have not seen the first script. I don't have any idea. I do know there's going to be new recurring characters. I could say that much. And that we do start casting again in the next week for some new. So be on the lookout if you're an actor. I'm assuming they cast on Actors Access. I hope I'm not saying that incorrectly, but they have in the past. Ronnie Hummel is the casting director, so she's somebody that would know.
And if you have a keen eye, you can find Ronnie Hummel in several episodes of season 2.
Yeah, she is there. I saw her last week. Oh, go ahead.
No, so the final 2 segments that we do on Gifts for Glory is the Scott Galbraith says he wants to be on the show. So Scott, get your resume ready, your reel ready, and maybe a few pictures of Benjamin Franklin might help.
Yeah, and I think he needs to audition in his Facebook profile outfit.
Yeah,
In his
absolutely.
Mario outfit.
Hey, there could be a crime that happens at a children's birthday party,
That's a
and there's
great
Scott
idea.
as Mario.
Yeah. Hopefully Jared's listening.
All right. So the final two segments are the interrogation and the wise counsel. We'll start with the interrogation, 7 random questions that otherwise would not have fit in the conversation. Here we go. So in a new take for Todd, he is on the other side of the interrogation questions. Number 1 is, who is on your music playlist?
Oh my gosh. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. Oh my gosh. I love music. In fact, my wife is a singer-songwriter. Both my kids are musical. I'm less musical. I'm going to take piano lessons, and I'm saying all this because I don't know that I can answer the question. I do like country music. And I like some, random different Christian music, but I couldn't tell you. I like more like 70s music. I love 70s music. Like my son's favorite band is Rush, and
Okay.
but that's not really necessarily 70s. I think it's more 80s. But anyway, I used to love Rush. That was one of my favorite bands. But anyway, other than that, I liked Bread. I like Jim Croce. This is dating me. Three Dog Night. I love Joe Cocker. I love Michael McDonald. These are just names that are coming. So that's enough.
All right. Question number 2. What's your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, peanut butter. Probably peanut butter. Yeah.
Straight out of the jar, or like a peanut butter sandwich?
Yeah, peanut butter, sometimes like a rice thing or just bread. But yeah, peanut butter or peanut butter flavored cereal. That's what you can get me. Anybody can give me that.
That's what's in your trailer every episode.
That's right. Minus the trailer.
It's more of a shed. Question number 3. How do you relax?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say a lot of times it's just kicking back and watching TV, but that is such a bad habit, and that's probably something I'm trying to break myself of. And I'm gonna start taking piano lessons because I think once I start learning, that will be a relaxing thing for me to do, and But it's something I've always wanted to learn, and I've just never done it. Other than that, I like to started working out more recently, and sometimes running, things like that. So that was one of my goals for Travis, not to be the butt of the joke when it comes to working out and whatnot, to try to get in shape. So I've actually been trying.
There you go.
We'll see what happens.
And if Jared's watching this, he could have Travis go on this journey throughout the season learning to play piano, so it becomes a work thing to help get you motivated to do it, and then
good.
Do an opus at the end.
That's good. That's good.
Benji Wilbanks says yes to piano.
Yes, Benji's like an inspiration for me, because he'll get on Facebook and he'll just start pounding out all these old classic songs, and I'm like, God, that's great. And my son, my youngest son, can do it. He just gets on the piano, and I don't know how he does it. He just starts pounding stuff out. He does not read music, but he can, just beautiful music. So
very nice,
inspiring.
Very nice. Question number 4: do you have any regrets or things that you wish you could do over?
Yeah, I wish I had taken a language. Well, I took a language in school, but I wish I developed it and stuck with it, because that's something I'm always thinking about going back to, learning Spanish. Tried to learn a little Russian, when I was doing that other deal. But, if I was going to go back, because maybe I don't have to regret it, because maybe I still can. So maybe Spanish, and I'm trying piano. So hopefully I won't have those regrets.
Sounds good. Question number 4: what's the best part of being a realtor?
The best part of being a realtor. Well, I'll tell you, I got into realty because my mom was in the business for years. It was just a natural fit. But when I got in, I loved it because I like I like looking at houses. I love the discovery of, what works for somebody, what they like, and, how to find that one that fits for them. There's a lot of things that I don't like about real estate, just a lot of mechanics of inspections and whatnot. That's not that much fun. But really seeing somebody find something they like, and it's a tough market out there because so many people are competing against the same, for the same thing. But yeah, I would say that just finding that house that somebody just falls in love with.
Do you ever have a, Gary Travis moment where you take off your ID and you're like, I'm not going to talk to you as a realtor. I'm talking to you as a father. You really need this house.
Actually, I do. I not phrased like that, but I do. I'm like, I should probably like, it's just more accounts. So because I'm not a salesy kind of guy. I like, I'll tell people, yeah, I don't really like this house. Even sometimes when they seem to like it, but I'll give them specific reasons why. But yeah, I'm just,
right. Yeah. All right. So the next question I'm going to ask is, what quirk or habit does your wife tease you about?
Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because I literally just got reprimanded earlier for this, clearing my throat as I'm walking into the kitchen and they're, like her and my son are watching a movie. She's like, stop.
Hey, you have to let her know that you're arriving.
It's a bad habit, but yeah. She's
right. So question number 7 is who's in the body bag? I'm kidding.
Yeah, I wish I knew.
And really, the question is, what kind of character or what role would be your dream role?
Golly. You know what? I don't think I can answer that question. I've had some roles that it's so funny now. These days, as an actor, I can think of roles I'd like to play, but there's so much about cultural appropriation. Like you don't have that issue, so you shouldn't be playing that character, and which I think is dumb because that's kind of what acting is about. But there is a guy that I used to work with. I used to be on the night shift of this home for developmentally disabled men. And so there was this one guy there named Ronnie. He had cerebral palsy. I love this guy. I mean, he just a sweetheart. And I thought if I could ever play somebody like Ronnie, that would be a blessing to me because just his heart was just beamed. He did not have, much functionality with his limbs, but just you could just see his heart exuded from him. So, probably somebody with that's developmentally disabled in some way. I don't know. I just have always had that thought just because of my experience with Ronnie.
And you're right too, that with the cancel culture and the cultural appropriation, sometimes it's very hard to be somebody that plays those roles because somebody can misinterpret your acting as making fun or disrespecting. But when it's somebody like that you just talked about, anybody that would pay attention would know, okay, this is done in honor of, not at the expense of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know what some of the fuss is, but yeah, it seems to be a thing these days. So, but yeah, that's something, I would, possibly one day like to try. But, it's honest for me. It's like I see if I audition for the role and I see the role and it's on paper, a lot of times that's what gets my interest. It's like, oh, I like that character because I have a certain idea of that character that maybe they didn't necessarily have. I don't know. That gets me excited about doing something.
Yeah. And Scott Galbraith, I wanted to throw in a bonus question. For those of us that have to come to Texas to be on the show, can you recommend a good Airbnb? No.
Well, we have no, I won't even go there. No, I cannot.
I think that was just his very
He's wanting to stay at my house. Is that what
yeah,
he's?
yeah. He's wondering,
Right.
hey, do you have a room?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Todd, the final question I ask every interview, for anybody that wants to use their gifts, their talents, their passions, their experiences in a way that's going to honor and glorify God, what would be your wise counsel for that person?
So I'm answering this kind of maybe in a long form because for me, I knew what my passion was before I really had a relationship with God. So I
Mhm.
knew what I wanted to do versus coming into it. Okay, I'm a believer and what's God leading me to do. So I had that I had that bent toward the arts. Um, but what's happened is because of becoming a Christian, it's given me a different perspective on acting. And I'm not answering your question directly yet, but for me, it's given me all these ideas on how to potentially teach acting because I get so much revelation from what the word says on how to maybe be more authentic in your acting experience. Uh, so I would just say, whatever it is that God has put on your heart, maybe even before you became a believer or those things, sometimes God can use those. I mean, I don't, I mean, I'm sure some people came out of some fairly rough lives, and maybe some of those circumstances aren't going to be glorifying to God. But, if He's put something in your heart, I think you just got to nurture it
Mhm.
and trust Him. I will say this in my walk, sometimes I won't know if I'm supposed to go somewhere, but I'll pray that God, and some people disagree with this, shuts the door on the circumstance. Sometimes I know I shouldn't be there. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. So I'll say, God, and I'll pray, God, shut this door. And I've had it happen where I was in a situation and I got fired from a job. And I took that as God not wanting me in that situation. It wasn't because I did anything inappropriate or wrong or,
Mhm.
didn't show up, that kind of thing. It was a blessing that I got fired and it led to some other great work. So
Mhm.
I'm just a believer in, pray and trust. But you also got to know that check in your spirit and know if that, if you feel like, no, I'm not supposed to be there, I'm pretty confident, don't do it.
Mhm.
I know that didn't really answer the total question, but I would say
Yeah.
nurture the passion that you have, whatever it's in, if it's art or whatever. Start taking a class, and just nurture that. Hook up with other believers that are, like-minded, and create your own projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good word because God can redeem it. Like for me, for many years, just brief testimony is I battled suicidal thoughts and depression for many years, and I used humor as a way to hide that. And now God's redeeming that to where I can now use comedy to minister to people.
That's awesome.
So God can use whatever as long as you're willing to give it to Him. So that's a good word. Is that just because you become a Christian doesn't mean that God's not going to use your life before that or what you developed before that. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and I will say, like, my wife went through a deal. She's a singer-songwriter and an actress, but she had a time where God spoke to her about her music at the time and told her, in a sense, to put it down.
Mm,
But she knew in her heart what that was really about. We were raising 2 young kids and all this stuff, and God spoke to her on that issue in a pretty powerful way. So, trusting that God will speak to you, put it in His hands. He gives us good gifts. He's not out there to just see us fall and not pick us back up.
right.
So,
Good word. All right. Well, Todd, you made it through the interrogation and the wise counsel. I really appreciate you being on. For those, again, want you to connect with Todd and different projects. Find vindicationseries.com for all the links to their social media. And for 3 of the upcoming projects that he's a part of, look for Pull from Darkness, Running the Bases, and Unbreakable Boy. Really appreciate your time tonight, Todd. It's been a blessing, and looking forward to seeing season 3.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Next week, I'll have a member of my improv team, Christy Kale. She will be on. We'll hear her testimony and hear about comedy as ministry. That's next week right here. So thanks for everybody tuning in. We will see you then.